Many of you watching this video grew up in the city or grew up in the section of the city that was predominantly black. And in your particular neighborhood, in your respective city, there were not a lot of resources for you really to survive there. What do I mean when I say resources? Well, how many businesses were there? How many mentors were there? How many banks that could help you get a loan were there? These are the inputs that we need in most communities: safety, things like that, income streams, to be able to survive in said city or said community, which really drives a lot of us out if we have, talent, and if we have, somewhat of a yearning to do better in life. It drives us out of that city. For example, I was born in Los Angeles, raised in Sacramento. I no longer even live in the United States because opportunities were greater someplace else. But think about this. After you have reached a certain level, do you ever think about, I want to go back to where I'm from and give back? Think about it. Some of you guys come from these particular neighborhoods: St. Louis, Detroit, Cleveland, Southside Chicago. You think to yourself, you know what? I've gotten this education, especially if I'm from the black community. I want to go and empower the people that my education was supposed to help. It wasn't just supposed to help me. It was supposed to benefit the people that look like me. And that was a big goal of myself. It's a big goal for many of you. But unfortunately, as generations have grown logistically, we see that sometimes things are not as safe. And this is even happening in progressive cities like Atlanta. Imagine you had a 15-year-old son, and just 2 months ago, your son was killed in gang violence. You, as a father, a reformed person that has some issues, you're helping the community, you're trying to keep kids away from crime, gangs, and guns. What's the outcome for a man like that? A good black man who just maybe like 2 weeks ago saved somebody's life in a shootout. Well, let's play that clip and find out exactly what happened to him.
All new at 11, new information about a young father fighting against violent crime in his community as he falls victim to a violent crime himself. Tonight, family and friends of Terrence Favors Denson tell John Sherrick they're following his example in fighting back his way.
He had known tragedy, held it in his arms, staggering from personal tragedy that shattered his heart.
I saw hurt.
Close family and friends of 36-year-old Terrence Favors Denson hurting now too. 1 week after he was shot to death outside a neighborhood bar in Mechanicsville, just south of downtown Atlanta. The neighborhood where he was working to reduce violent crime and guide young people away from guns and gangs, especially after what happened this past June to his own son. His 15-year-old son, Terrence, was shot to death, family friend Takesia Shields.
Instead of going back and saying that I'm going to hurt somebody, he was going to the community saying, I want to save someone, and I'm going to save them in what way I can.
Terrence Favors Denson started an organization to try to save young people from violence, from the life of crime he led when he was young. Irisha Ridley, his cousin, says his mission consumed him.
He didn't want to repeat the cycle. He wanted to break the cycle. He wanted to build the community up. He didn't want them to experience the things that he experienced.
Last month, when someone opened fire at a softball game in Mechanicsville, killing one person and wounding 5 more, it was Terrence who ran in and helped save the life of one of the wounded, a 6-year-old girl. We were there a few days later when community leaders gathered nearby, Terrence among them, which is why they are determined to pick up Terrence's mission and make it their own. Pastor Radonis Bryan.
That's what he was doing with book bag giveaways, giving away food. As I said, he was just trying to help the community.
Fearlessly. In Mechanicsville in southwest Atlanta, John Sherrick, 11 Alive News.
So that man that we have just seen the story about is Terrence Favors Denson, age 36. Just lost his son, Terrence Jr., in June. Both of these men, victim of gun violence. And I'm going to be honest, I'm 41, so I'm old enough to be this guy's older brother and the father of his son. These are relatively young men. 2 young black men, a father and a son, deleted within 90 days. So now, my question is to you. Is it worth bringing resources back to the community? Now, let me just talk about this. Mr. Denson was at some point involved in the wrong thing himself, and I'm not clear as to why he got shot. Maybe he was still dabbling in certain things here and there. I'm not sure. I don't think that's the case. But just imagine if this is you. Do you risk your particular life just coming in back to the black community? Let me talk about somebody that I know here on YouTube by the name of Orlando Minor. Orlando Minor is from St. Louis. He has a real estate channel, right? And he had a pretty good video about Bank of America offering these loans to communities and black people who live in prospective poor cities, in poor neighborhoods, right? So they're giving you these specialized loans in these places. You know what he said? He said something very interesting. He said, okay, if you are even thinking about investing in black communities or in the hood, it's not even a good investment. It's a terrible investment because that property is never going to appreciate usually. There's never going to be any businesses there. There's never going to be any infrastructure there. There's always going to be crime there. So now that kind of answers the questions where people will say, well, you know what? I don't want to live in the black community. I just want to invest into the black community. So let me kind of get back to the particular point of the video. The reality is that for many people who are skilled, who have something going on, who want to be able to empower Black America, the reality is Black America can only be empowered by the infrastructure of family and financial literacy. Who reinvests into these communities? Why? And do you have families that will keep communities together? If you as a person, as an individual living in a community, don't have respect for the people who live in the community, and you don't have respect for the lack of life that somebody may live, and obviously I know that it's not everybody, but it is some people, right? And if there's a no snitching zone, I'm sorry, I can't risk my life living in a community like that just for the sake of giving back to the people. It's not going to work. In order for these communities to become better, the first thing that we need is, number one, the people in the community have to want to improve the community. Second of all, where is the reinvestment into the community? What I'm saying is, are there going to be businesses? Are we going to be paying taxes? All of these other things that make the communities the way that they are. And third, which is the most important, how many married people want to be in these communities? If people are not going to account for their kids, then you're always going to have danger. And that's something people don't want to talk about. People want to say, okay, let these people do whatever they want to do, and then let's get volunteers to come back in the Black community and help out. It's never going to work. It's always going to be problematic, always going to be dangerous. If families are not invested into communities, then the people won't be invested into communities. Then businesses won't be invested in communities. And then you get no reinvestment into the community itself. And then it's dangerous for everybody involved. So for guys like me, until I see better, I'm staying away. I won't be investing my money or my time in places where I feel the community itself isn't investing its money and its time. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again. Another episode of Celebrity Drunk. I really appreciate you for all that you do. We're out.